First up is the Panasonic SW21. It's small and lightweight with a 2.7-inch screen and a 10 times optical zoom. It will only work at depths of up to 2 meters though, which isn't as deep as the other two camcorders I was testing. The Sanyo Exacti WH1 is the cheapest of the three, and it shoots in HD, and it goes further underwater than the Panasonic, down to a depth of 3 meters. It has a whopping 30 times optical zoom, but a slightly small 2.5-inch screen. The Canon HF20 is an HD camcorder for which you can buy dedicated underwater housing. But the whole underwater package will set you back around $1,000. But that extra cash should offer better quality and does take you much deeper than the other two, down to 10 meters, where you can shoot full HD movies. It has a 15 times optical zoom and a neat 2.7-inch screen. Right, onto the important bit, testing. My first test was to find out how well the camcorders performed underwater and how easy they were to use. Kathy the dolphin was a very enthusiastic subject for my filming, and I started with the Panasonic. Well, it does come with 2 record buttons, so you can record in the standard way there, or there's a record button just there, so you can record torchlight. Although there are 2 ways to record with this camera, it didn't make up for the clunky zoom, which I found very difficult to control. There's no gradual, slow movement at all. And the sunlight made it difficult to see the dolphins on the screen whilst dipping the camera in and out of the water. It's actually difficult to frame up the shot. I can't see what I'm doing. Love you too. There we are. The footage, however, was really good, with clear definition and realistic colours, but it is only standard def. Onto the Sanyo. The Sanyo's set up very nicely. All the controls are at your thumb tips there, very nice. You can fold the screen back so you can see what you're doing. The Sanyo felt good to hold, and the zoom was much smoother than the Panasonic's, creeping in and out very gently. This camera's actually a bit weightier than the Panasonic, but obviously when you're doing stuff underwater, that doesn't matter so much. The 720p footage was pretty decent, although at times I felt the colours weren't as bright as they should have been. And so, onto the final camcorder, the Canon. Operating this camera is a cinch. The buttons are huge, everything is laid out before you, dead simply. The full HD footage produced by the Canon was far superior to the other 2 cameras. The images were well-defined, crisp and colourful. I am not floating. But I struggled to see my footage because of the cumbersome underwater housing, which stopped me twisting the screen. It was also a bit big to use with just one hand. So, after a morning with the dolphins, the Sanyo was in the lead. On to test 2. This is the leap of faith, a 60-meter water slide. The 30-meter drop at the start is almost vertical, and as it levels out, you fly through a tank of sharks, finally getting spurted out a few seconds later, hoping all your body parts are still attached to each other. First, I went down with the Panasonic. I was impressed by how well it dealt with the massive light changes and how colourful the footage was. Next, I headed down with my favourite so far, the Sanyo, but surprisingly, it didn't cope with the fast changes of light very well at all. Finally, the Canon. Again, it didn't cope well with the rapid light changes, and the footage almost looked, dare I say it, washed out. It's horrible. So, it was the Panasonic that triumphed on the water slide. Even at standard def, it dealt with changes of light and movement very well. For my final test, I headed well away from the water and to the highest balcony of our hotel. I wanted to see how well each camcorder performed out of the water by capturing the amazing view across the Palm Island. The Panasonic standard definition footage was very noisy and grainy, especially when I zoomed in. The Sanyo 720p HD footage was much more colourful and detailed with good contrast. But it was the Canon, out of its underwater housing, that produced the best quality footage of the 3, thanks to its full HD capabilities. So, G ratings, and it's 3 Gs for the Panasonic. It only films in standard def, and the clunky zoom really let it down. It's also 3 Gs for the Canon in its housing. Although it produced the best footage, its underwater housing made it far too user-unfriendly in the water park, and it's very pricey. And the Sanyo just scrapes 4 Gs. It's by no means perfect, but of the 3, it was the easiest to use, produced great footage, and is great value for money.